everybody. Welcome. Regular city council meeting, December 14th, 7 p.m. All are present and accounted for that need to be. Kel and Nelson would be on the rotation for a prayer or a thought, but we're going to swing it over to Robert Turk. There's a history to the why that, because we may not have another meeting wherein I can impose that prayer on him if I get my way. So
you're okay with that, right?
you'll be up to the next one. All right. So we'll have a prayer or thought by Robert, followed by the pledge.
Father in heaven, we bow our heads before you at this time to give thee thanks for the blessings that we have received at thy hand and for our stewardship with Blanding City. We're grateful for the great people who live in this community and for the wonderful people that work for the city. We ask thy blessing upon the members of this council this evening, that we may make wise decisions that will benefit the residents of this community. We give thee thanks for the rain and snow that is falling in this land, and we ask that it may continue, that the reservoirs may be able to be filled, and that the people of this area may be able to flourish. We're grateful for all that thou hast given to us and for all the blessings that we receive at thy hand, and these things we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Agenda and minutes. Do we have any questions, additions, corrections?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda and the minutes from the December 14th meeting.
No, it's not
December.
Why does it say? No, that's funny. Today told me it's from the last meeting we had, 23rd. So the consent agenda for today, the minutes from last meeting.
Last meeting. So that's Perkins and Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Is there any particular declaration of conflict on this evening's agenda? Hearing none. We see staff and one member of the community, but all the staff is also members of the community. If anybody would like to address council on any issue, would be glad to listen to you. You might be your last chance.
Oh, yay.
Hold on, let me just make sure we adjust the camera.
Oh,
Appropriately get you in there.
There
we
If you want to sing a color song, we'll sing a color song with you if that makes you feel more comfortable.
I'm Valerie Turk, and I would just like to thank the council for their thoughtful consideration of everything that goes on in town. I know when people see something happen, they say, oh, that's nice. They don't know that it's taken months and months of careful deliberation on your part to make things happen. And I have really enjoyed coming to the meetings, and I'm glad just that you can disagree, but not be disagreeable with everyone. So thank you. And I may surprise you and come some other times.
Come join me. Yes.
Thank you, Valerie. Anybody else want to address council? Okay, seeing none, moving into reports. I had no report of particular except to note that Logan Monson's observation continues to hold every time council meet. It rains or snows, even if it's a party. And so
We might be doing lots of parties.
that's what it takes to fill the reservoirs and keep it going. Let's do that. But I have no reports, anything from council.
I went to the ULCT on Saturday. I had some notes I was going to share and I forgot them, but one of the main things, and I talked to Mayor and Dave about this, but they did mention the tie-breaking rule. They said, I don't know, you said it's in the Constitution that it is a game of chance, but they said it was the mayor was a tie-breaking vote. But anyway, I don't know if that's something we want to make sure we have for January.
Which is
but-
interesting because in the league's book,
Yeah,
it says different.
He has the executive powers. He can't.
Anyway, I don't know what the answer is.
That was
I,
interesting.
But that's something that I'll double check.
that's what they said, and people question on that, and they said, no, that's what it is. But anyway,
I like the chance again.
Yeah. and then.
I mean, it worked in your favor.
It seems like kind of a
Actually, it
crazy
wasn't
thing,
fun.
but
That
it-
wasn't fun.
But yeah, the Constitution specifically states that the mayor does not vote and that it falls to a game of chance after a second vote. If there's not a winner, it falls to a game of chance, and they suggest 2 or 3 different ones or any other game of chance. It's the funniest thing to read
Yeah.
in a legal document.
Has it changed though? I wonder.
I don't-
Did they give, was there a new book? Was
There's a
there
new book, and
So I wonder if
but I said, well, where does it say that? And he pointed to me the page in the book, but it doesn't clarify. It didn't clarify anything. So,
Yeah, I'd go with the
Yeah,
Constitution
yeah.
instead of the book.
well, that's what I was looking for. To show me where it was.
Well, but in the book, I mean, I've even looked at it several times just because I've always been like, it seems so weird. And it does say that it goes to, I don't know if it says game of chance or what it says, but I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
clear that it mentions like drawing straws.
That's
or
why I asked
something like
I asked Kendall at the time,
Yeah.
I said, I don't see any other way to read this, but it just,
Yeah.
if we happen to fall on that, I want you backing me up. And he said, there's no other way to read it. That's what it says. So
And
it's interesting.
anyway, the only other thing I remember was that there's possibly some legislation coming down about short-term rentals that they were fighting, that the league was fighting against. So
Yeah,
that's,
let's let communities decide that.
yeah, so that's
That's kind of the position of the league, actually.
that was definitely their position.
Yeah.
So,
And there's that, so I mean, there is a league board meeting tomorrow, which I'm on that board now, so we are discussing that. The other things were, a few big things were, sales tax is another thing that there is coming up again, and incentivizing different businesses. So the league will have, when they come up with that, I'll just send all the emails to you guys so you can read through it, because I mean, if you want to.
Well, I sit on their legislative committee. So
We have a few, we have,
it's on-
how many positions do we hold on that from our cities? At 2 or 3?
they said, I guess we'd have 3 is what they said.
That's what I was thinking too.
So when those things come up, those 3 people can vote on those things.
So it'd be myself and 2 appointed council.
As far as establishing like the league's official position.
Right, yeah,
Which the cities can adopt or not, or
because we're part of it then.
object to or anything else. Okay.
And I have another list of things that I apparently forgot it.
I forgot mine too. So.
Any other council reports?
I mean, really, I guess that this would probably be the time that I give a resignation from council effective on, what did we say, January
We'll
3rd?
swear you in on the 3rd, or swear in or swear at, whatever Kim chooses to do. Oh, sorry, I mean, I think it was the 3rd that we talked about. Yeah, January 3rd.
Yeah, so I'll resign my seat effective January 3rd, and then we'll appoint someone at our first meeting on, I can't remember. the
January
date.
11th.
Yeah, the 11th.
So with that resignation, then what we'll do is we'll just put it out publicly that there's a vacancy, and all those that are interested can submit their interests. And
Okay.
I should say with that pending resignation.
Right.
Yeah, now can you even advertise the position until it's vacant? You
You
can't
can't.
fill it till it's
Then,
vacant.
so
But you
that's
can
what I checked
advertise
with,
preemptively to get to,
yeah.
okay.
And we
As
have to
long as he
advertise for
said-
at least 2 weeks.
yeah, and he said, or the lieutenant governor's office said, as long as, he says the effective date, then we can start
Okay.
putting out that.
So you can advertise for 2 weeks
Vacancies
before
will be
effective
open.
date. Okay, just can't fill it while you're still sitting on the council. That's the
Right.
rule. All right, city manager.
Okay, well, let's do the fun stuff first. I think our mayor-elect is gonna help us present some plaques and do some recognitions for a couple wise guys on the dais. And I mean that in the most respectful way as possible.
I wasn't prepared to do this because I totally thought we had another meeting left this month, but We don't,
So it's scheduled.
right, but typically, so. The first one is for Robert Turk. Just years of service, and we want to thank him. There you are. Do I have clarity?
And I'm right in the middle.
Photo bomb.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
That's 42. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Have it here or something.
I know.
Class or something?
Yeah.
Right. And then we have Mayor Lyman. So this first one is from the
Okay.
yeah,
Basically the association.
Association of
AOG.
Governments, yeah, AOG.
Mhm.
How long have you been on that?
4 years.
For a
How
minute.
many?
On this.
Four on
I thought you
that.
said 40.
40 40 years. Been doing it for a while.
These are way more than.
Bureaucratic years. It's
Just got a
40.
box of
Right.
chocolates.
So that one's a nice little plaque, and then of course this one, I mean, service here since when, 2003? Planning Commission?
Let's start with planning
It's
commission,
been-
yeah.
It's been 18 years. so.
19.
19, so there's a lot
Wow.
of years there, so thank you.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
1, 2, 3. You.
Loading up.
All the stuff over there.
And we also got you something to go on your boat in retirement.
Okay, cool.
Aw.
I'm very
I think
excited to
There's
see what that
a rope to
is.
tie it down. Is that what it is?
Tie down set.
Tie down set. There you go.
Excellent.
Encourage you to use that boat a little bit more now.
Oh, well,
Thank you, gentlemen.
if
I would've come more prepared,
Logan
but-
can keep it raining every 2 weeks, then I might be able to use the boat.
I know, right?
I don't need.
Yeah, but-
week of
And if
Christmas.
I could just add to some of that, I just want to say, I mean, the council as a whole has been great to me my first year, but my interactions with Councilmember Turk and Mayor have been wonderful, and I appreciate the times and mentorship that you've given me. Stranger coming into a new community, trying to help work through all the nuances. It's meant a lot to me as a first-time city manager, having the kind of mentorship and friendship, not only from the whole council, but especially from the both of you. I've really appreciated it quite a bit. So,
Thank you.
all right, well, let's move on to the next thing. We have a couple new employees I wanted to introduce you to. One of them, Lakeisha Lopez, she wasn't able to make it. She had some family things come up, but we'll get her in here in January to introduce you. But she's our new justice court clerk part-time. She actually has a, let's see if I get this correct. I think it's a bachelor's in criminal justice, master's. She's about to finish in criminal psychology, and she's also contemplating going on to do her doctorate. But she's worked in the courts, I think, through the Ute Nation. So it was quite awesome to be able to get her on that position. She's doing well. And then Jonna, if you want to come up, Jonna Meyer. Yeah, come on up. I'm sure several of you know her, but Jonna will now fill as our deputy recorder and an executive assistant position. So Kim can just relax in the audience after this meeting, and then Jonna will help take the minutes, fill grandma requests, and help us organize things. Jonna, you're running way too quick. Is there anything you want to? Say or add?
Be on the spot.
No, I mean, that's all, what this is all about, is opportunity for me to put you on the spot and make you squirm a little bit, but anything you want to add?
No.
Okay, well, she's been doing great. So as part of the recorder and deputy recorder, you have to take certain trainings every year, and she's already gone through all those. She's notarized as a public, or she is a public notary. She's not notarized, I guess, but we're glad to have her on board. It's already been a big help. So, okay, next, grant updates. So we've got a few different grants that we've been applying for, and these are just kind of some of the highlights. The TPA grant is the Transportation Planning Assistance Grant through UDOT. So essentially UDOT does grants for local and regional planning. And since we recently updated our master transportation plan, we're looking at updating these other enterprise and city plans. The natural step is to update our overarching plan that all those plans fall under, and that's our general plan. And so we submitted an application, and I'm told that ours was, of our contact with UDOT, that ours was actually the strongest one that he read. So that was encouraging. Hopefully we're not getting our hopes up, but that hopefully we'll get a grant for that to update our general plan. And what that does is not only with the general plan, but right now, Landing City, we have our zones, right? But in our annexation boundaries, we actually don't have land use maps that say, when this is annexed in, here's what zone the council or the community wants to see it. So right now, if there's a neighborhood and say Tyson Foods wants to build a chicken plant right next to that neighborhood, well, there's no real teeth for the council to say, no, we don't want you to be right there because our land use zoning says this when you annex in. And so by creating those maps and updating the general plan, it'll just help better guide any growth of the community in the way that the community wants to see it. So the next one is the fire grant. Could you give a quick highlight on that?
So this is a grant through FEMA. Every year it comes around that you can apply for a grant. They have priorities that they're looking at. And this year the priority happens to be PPE, specifically the SCBA bottles. Currently our bottles are, with the majority of them, are out of compliance. They're
At the end of their
expired.
life.
They're expired, and the cost to replace them is $255-ish thousand. And so Corey and I have been working on.
bottles?
They're the bottles they use when they go in.
They carry oxygen.
They
Carry all the oxygen.
And they've been applying
Yeah,
for it for the
there's
last
No
several.
bottles.
They've been applying for it for the last several years, and this year the PPE is actually one of FEMA's focuses. So we're keeping our fingers crossed because it's getting down to the wire. for us.
It is due on Friday, and Corey and I have been working on it. We're this close to being done with that, and we have our fingers crossed. He's been working with the fire guy out of Salt Lake that has sat on the board that has selected the recipients, and so he's getting some feedback on them. So we're really hoping that that follows through. If you remember, a few years ago, we bought about $12,000 worth of bottles from Penguish Lake or something that were just about at the end of their life, and we've been able to string those out 3 or 4 years. But now we're getting to the point where we're going to have to start looking at replacing them. So cross your fingers that we can pick
Is
that
there
up.
any residual COVID money that would apply to PPE? I'm assuming we would have looked at that.
The
right
last tranche that come out, this last batch has nothing in there for this stuff. So that's really kind of sad, but I think that's why they have a little extra dollars. So we're hoping that we can pick up some of those. So we have our fingers crossed.
So with that, what we're hoping, because it's one of their priorities this year, they really give favor to whatever that flavor of the year is on their priorities. But if we don't receive that, then we need to have a contingency plan of capital and planning for how are we going to replace these within the next couple of years, because they are getting at the end of their life, and they've been trying. I think this is the 3rd or 4th year that they've tried.
The goal there be to work them into a rotation.
Exactly.
So it's just an ongoing.
Yeah, even if we buy a few at a time to rotate in, because from what I understand, this, and our chief spillman could speak to this more, but we can't keep buying these same ones. I don't think they're usable anymore, or
They don't even
make them anymore. Yeah. So on a more positive note, though, the water master plan, we did receive a grant from the state to fully fund our water master plan. And since we have a general services agreement with Jones and DeMille, we've already done a work order for them to move forward and start putting together the water master plan. So that is $50,000 that the city budgeted that now will go back into our savings because of this grant. So that's a huge win for us. And then lastly is the historical fund. And Pratt, I know we talked about this a little bit, but I'm already kind of spacing the finer details of it. It's helping with Swallow's Nest, but Pratt can.
Yeah,
give a little more detail.
That's the basis of it. It was brought to Kellen's attention through one of the members of the San Juan Historical Commission. And it was available for $50,000 to $25,000. And as I priced things out, with $25,000 is what we applied for. And that'll go towards the Swallow's Nest and anything around that building.
That's for the
we kind of
drainage.
needed. And the gravel, things that Winston had recommended, it would cover all that, and new gravel in the Triangle Park as well, right there by the visitor center. So
Who's the granting agency on that one?
it's the something Historical Society, federal.
Oh, it's federal, it's not state.
Yeah, it's federal. Historical Preservation, it's HPA or something like that, Historical Preservation Association, maybe.
Can't remember either.
It's a fancy acronym, I'm sure so.
You're not government unless you got some good acronyms in there.
I
So,
know.
okay, and then lastly, the project status update.
Quick question on with the grants, have we heard back on the ARPA funds yet?
Oh, thank you for asking that. So we had applied for local matching grants through the state. They had extra ARPA funds. We had applied for the East Side Sewer Project as well as our deep well, and we did not receive either of those grants.
No.
No, we didn't receive either of them. Which is unfortunate. Although as far as the deep well is concerned, there's still the efforts that we're making with the Lieutenant Governor's office that seems. And I don't know that I haven't received the documentation, so I'm not going to say finer details with this, but I do know that the legislature has already committed prior to the session $3 million toward that project, toward the sell of, or getting the deep well and then being able to sell water to NTUA. But I was told today, and I'm waiting to receive some confirmation, that it looks like another entity is going to be donating another $3 million toward the project. So I'm waiting to receive that information to make sure I'm confirming everything. But that's good news.
And how much do we think that project's gonna cost though?
Right now, the max estimation is 10 million for infrastructure, both landing and for NTUA and the well, all of it together. And that's because water infrastructure is much different than power infrastructure. And that's actually why the state was more interested, well, it's probably not the right word, more could justify this project more, is because the deep well is being built in Blanding City, and it would benefit the sale of water to NTUA, would benefit Westwater and the entire population of Blanding City. You can justify those kind of costs more per capita. And so that's been where we're getting a lot of traction, is that this is a collaborative effort that's going to benefit a larger region. So.
Can I back up to
Yeah,
the ARPA funds? So if I understand it right from sitting through some of those meetings, they may have another cycle of that grant funding after February, and we can reapply for something else or
With the
reapply for
same
what we
projects,
got.
yeah. I think we would keep pushing the East Side Sewer Project.
We
we
looked through
applied
the
for.
list when the list came out of who had received it. We were kind of surprised that we had kind of been left off that list. So
They're throwing money all over the place.
we'll get back in and try again.
Sure, I guess, it feels sometimes like you're in one of those little glass tubes where the money blows around. You're just trying to grab it. We're trying to stuff it as much as we can.
Unfortunately, that's it's a good metaphor, but in my mind, it's too bad that that's the way it is.
Yeah,
But it is the way it is.
I mean, it's a little more processed
We
than that,
didn't
but
create that.
it feels a bit like that.
We didn't create that scenario,
So-
but it's the reality we're dealing with.
Another couple quick updates through CDBG. There's a potential that we could fund the park pavilion.
What is CD,
And
what's that acronym?
It's Community Block.
Grant.
Development- Community Development Block Grant, yeah.
That's the
So-
state board I was on.
No, CDBG funding, it's a little bit more of a red tape process to go through, but if we can fund the pavilion, we're trying to find out right now, we were told no, but we're trying to see if it actually could fund maybe pickleball courts as well, because we feel like those would be even more.
And that's a
widely used.
matching grant typically.
I don't think it's a matching.
Oh.
It's just
Okay.
for community development, yeah.
Yeah, the intent is to serve the broader community, for it to be free for. Yes, that's what we're hoping. So, so we're still trying on these other
Nice.
things that we've had to cut out from the city budget. We're trying in other avenues to make that happen.
Will they fund a sprinkler system?
We already have tried.
Right.
That's right.
That was our first
Sorry,
question.
had to try.
Bath, showers, everything.
You're right on.
Those aren't as exciting as the pavilion. I get it.
That's the perfect segue actually to the next part is I've spoken with an architect on the showers and the sprinkler. He's putting together estimates for me right now on both of those. I also spoke to another sprinkler company that Councilmember Monson had gotten a hold of. And he is willing to come down here and do a more hard estimate, even without any guarantees of the job. But thankfully, this new sprinkler company, fire suppression company, they actually have a state contract. So depending where they come in, that might be an easier process to go with them. He is saying that given the description, and I was able to give him a set of plans, he is saying we would need the higher cost. He's still putting together estimates and he wants to come down here, but he said the upgraded alarm system would be needed and a few other things.
So I talked to him today too, on a few things, just in addition to that. Anytime you change the footprint of the building or add to it, you have to then meet all the code. So you can't, so back then maybe we got by it without meeting that code. But now the code does say that you do have to have a voice activated alarm system for the fire system. So that's a new code that we would then have to meet.
And that's why we're seeing those costs.
Something with them.
How is it voice activated?
I don't understand. I didn't ask questions about it.
How much
Say Alexa.
the usage or the design of the structure?
Well, it's just
major
making renovation.
The water line is the big thing because you have to put the dedicated water line in.
Even if we weren't doing the showers. it
And
would
that
be
changes,
required.
I mean, that's,
Required to permit.
yeah. And I mean, a few things with him, seemed willing to work with us on what we wanted to do as far as, they do have financing options for things, which is,
But
I mean,
we could
depending on what it
finance
is,
through
right,
CIP,
we could,
that's 0%.
several different things. And then the other thing that he said was, he is going to come down on January 4th. Is
Oh,
when
yes,
he's
we
planning
can.
on coming down to look at it. And if anybody wants to talk to him, ask questions, he's happy to.
So I scheduled a time with him on the 4th.
He's a contractor?
He's specifically in the fire suppression business. And he's been vetted through the state, hence the state.
This company is
contract.
called Johnson Controls,
Oh.
is what it is.
Yeah. I've worked with them.
And one of the things that he said, though, is it would be good after we get the estimate from the architect. He's still coming on the 4th, but once he gets, we get the estimate from the architect, and if we move forward with the architect on the showers, he could give us updated estimates in relation to how the showers would impact it, because he could give us a hard estimate on the 4th, and he's still going to based on as is. But with the renovations with the showers, that would make some probably minor modifications, probably nothing of grave significance, given the costs that we're looking at. But I mean, these are steps forward. I know it's still not encouraging news, but there's steps forward, and we're trying to see what we can find out and see what he can provide. So I think that's, oh, actually one more thing. David and Terry, they've been tag teaming, both being on vacation or out at conferences and being in the office, but they have been communicating about the baseball dirt. Terry thinks and sounds like he is pretty confident that he should be able to do that, but they still need to touch base and vet through a few more things a little bit more. But we're moving forward in that direction too. So,
Can I just make a note about that? So Terry's not doing the dirt for the
Field.
softball field, correct?
right, yeah, we're gonna
moving forward with
contract
that.
the
Okay.
company out of Cedar City to do that. It's the other ones that I'm referring to. So, yeah.
So I'll try to email you about this as well, but Cosby Trucking would like to do a bid on trucking the material so that we can possibly get 3 inches of fill dirt for the same cost. Have they been working with?
Well, we can get them in touch with the company out of Cedar City because, well.
I thought you guys had to get multiple bids or something with our purchasing process. It was requiring you to get another bid
That's a bid for the
For the
dirt.
dirt.
for the dirt.
For the dirt, yeah.
Okay.
But you don't-
Because we would
you don't
pay
have-
them to truck.
But you don't have to pay for them to transport it, though. You can just buy it.
Part of it was,
Yes.
there was 2 options, right?
There
There
was
was an
2
option of them transporting it or us.
Right,
So we
so,
do need David to probably be a little bit involved because they gave us the option with dirt and with transportation of the dirt. And so Cosby could come in and say, this is what we could do it for and possibly, I don't want to complicate it more. I don't want to slow it down, but if we can get them to do it for less cost so that we can get more dirt, that might be helpful.
right, and the costs are with just doing the one field, both with the trucking and the dirt combined, are low enough that even administratively I can approve those things. I will still have to probably look at getting a couple different estimates on what it would cost, but I can help coordinate that. So if you want to send me that information, that's fine. And I'm assuming the company that has the dirt or selling the dirt already has a bid of, well, they do already have a bid cost for hiring someone to truck it here. So was it?
Oh, it was from the very first time it was bid?
And Glade Young. I've talked
Okay.
with both of them.
Okay.
Okay, so that may already be the case. All right.
That's not getting passed down to the coaches, so I'll share that with the coaches. Because they think they're just now getting involved, but they didn't realize it was them from the beginning.
Okay, well, those are some of the updates that I've had since I wrote this. So a lot of positive things moving forward just in the last few days. So I'm sorry to take so long on the reports.
Well, no, it's good to take the time because there's stuff happening. And so it feels like there's some energy moving forward where there's just been so many times we feel like we're dragging in the mud. So it's encouraging that it's moving.
In addition to the showers, I forgot that I had talked to Ronnie Neves at the Public Health Department. Because at our last meeting, maybe I said it, I can't remember, are they gonna shut us down if it's not done before then? And Ronnie said, absolutely not, like it's gone 10 years without it, like as long as we're making steps to work with it and can give him a timeline, whether that's we want to do it in 6 months or we plan to have this done in 2 years, like he's gonna work with us.
So it's kind of like what we do with residents or business that have code compliance. We give them a deadline that we want to see things done by. And if they're working on it and they're close or they're not quite there or whatever, we'll still work with them even past that. So essentially they're going to be working with us too. So.
Okay, moving ahead. Finance, Kim Palmer, we want to go through in minute detail every page of the.
Well, this is just the invoice register.
Oh, you don't want to talk about this in
Not
great
yet.
detail?
That's
That's
Go through, right?
That's the grand poobah.
Do you have any questions on the invoice register?
I did not.
I'll let you share that. Hey,
So that you're good, we're good there then? All right, moving ahead. We don't have Terry, so Terry's out of town?
He's at UAM.
Okay.
Taking care of business.
Is he listening in? You there, Terry?
He's not. He
Okay.
actually has a board meeting at the same time. So.
Well, ours is less bored than theirs, I guarantee you. So anyway, but that relates to the water and any other report. Is there anything other than what we've been looking at all along, you know, and it might snow a lot on the mountain tonight, let's hope. You got any questions that we need to pose or wondering about on water? Okay, police, Chief Bradford.
One of the things, the finance stuff, we applied for and were approved for a grant to buy the actual body cameras itself instead of, doesn't cover the cost of the whole system to support them, but it's $3,495 that we was able to get, which will help because I think we budgeted for that in the body cams and so we get some of that back so we can be beneficial to us.
And what's the cost of integrating to make them be usable, kind of a thing?
A little of it's like
remember, I didn't bring the whole.
5,000 something a year for the contract. That includes all the software, the support, the cloud storage, access for attorneys to just jump in and be able to pull that video, which will save a lot of officer time. And
How are we budget wise on making that happen? Just, I mean, every time we turn around, there's just more and more and more demands on budget. So it just starts getting scary about how we're gonna make it all work.
it was budgeted for, and we're in good
I
shape,
think
right?
so, yeah, we
Okay.
budgeted for that, that's in there.
Okay,
We have to do something to store that data. And this seemed to be the most expensive way to do it. And I think the first year was more expensive, and it seems like it went to like 25, 3,000 a year. I'd have to
dig
pull
back
that.
the numbers as well, but it'll be very beneficial to have good working cameras and ones that aren't being super glued back together and hand-me-downs from the county. So we're looking forward to having good relationship. Our report is in there. We've got a list of firearms that we are planning on selling to Salt Lake Wholesale.
So long as it won't have to be destroyed.
I don't think it's safe to operate. It was, when we got it, it had metal rods jammed down into the barrels or into the barrel. And I don't want to sell that and put someone at risk. Yeah, it works, but I don't want to put someone at risk for having a bad barrel on a rifle if we sell it to someone. We're working
and
on
so
getting
this is a ammo dealer that we do.
ammo, firearms. We've bought ammo from the past. If we were to look at switching handguns, we could go that route as far, as a trade-in as well. So
How long does it take to acquire? How long have we been acquiring these firearms?
some of them from as far back as 1929.
Oh, really? That long?
We've gotten rid of several over the years, but it's taken a little bit of work to find the case numbers on some of these so we can get the proper disposal orders and orders from the court saying, yes, you can take ownership and do what you need to do with them. And it's nice to be clearing those out of the evidence so we don't have to worry about them in there.
Yeah.
We just want to keep that as clean and running as efficient as we can.
So our distribution and possession charge is way up. That seems really
They
high.
were a little higher this last month. There was I don't know if people are coming through with holiday plans for Thanksgiving, but yeah, there was several more people coming through.
Is it marijuana or other? Oh,
Tryptophan.
everything.
It's tryptophan. Really overused a couple of weeks ago.
It's a sedative, it really works you over, so.
I have no idea what that is. So, are you being serious?
It's the chemical in turkey that makes you sleep.
Oh.
And then not being Thanksgiving.
Okay. All right. Okay, I got it.
Well, we're seeing it all, the meth, cocaine. You have just your plain marijuana, the extracts, the THCs, waxes, oils, things like that. So our impaired drivers are crazy on this stuff too, so. We just, as the police department, all my guys wanted me to express, thanks to you, Mayor Turk, sorry, I looked at Councilman Turk and your father over here, but Mayor Lyman and Councilman Turk for, your support and your backing, and we wish you well in the future. So
Thank you.
we will also, they want me to say we're gonna miss Kendall Laws as our attorney because he's been super beneficial to us. So that's our phone calls at 2 a.m, and he's actually come out on scene with us in the middle of the night and been involved. So we'll miss him. I just want to let him know we appreciate everything that he has done and the both of you have done for us. So.
Has the women's shelter is up and running? Has that been helpful? Or
I personally have not had to send anybody down there. We've made the offer to a few people that might have been in need. They're like, no, I would just want to get out of town and go home, kind of a thing. So
have you been transporting as many people up to like other places, or is that slowed down a little bit? Or and maybe that's the county that does most of that.
county does like mental health transports.
Mhm.
Yeah, they have a contract with
Okay.
mental health to do all the transports on that. But those seem to have tapered off a little. Hopefully we can keep that flow going.
Yeah. And are animals up or are they just about where they
They're about
usually
the
are?
same. We had, all the puppies that come in with parvo and stuff like that are not good, so. That's why our.
Does
numbers are up
CKN
on
still
that.
have an advocate in town?
Not that we know of.
Okay.
We send people their way, but I don't think we have anybody here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe excuse me, got some other things still happening tonight, so.
Yes, thank you.
All right, this is Brett's favorite topic here. Sort of is though.
This is a good
I mean,
topic
this
this
is
time.
it's quite surprising
Wow.
how much you benefit from just this little airport in ways you might not anticipate. So economic impact of the airport, Brett Housley.
Mayor and council, the reports in the packet, do you have any specific questions? Have you had a chance to look through it and look at those numbers? I knew our airport was a pretty good economic engine for the community and the county, but I didn't know it was quite as good as this report paints it. But I think it's probably a pretty reasonably good report. It's put out by the state, by a third party, so they don't have any local reason to mess the numbers up and not make them look good.
Well, I'm sure one of the reasons ours seems high or maybe feels a little high is because of all the jobs that the airport creates.
Oh, yeah.
All the jobs that Guardian Flight creates, and that helps to add to these numbers. I'm sure they factored that in.
Significantly, yeah,
right.
significantly. If we didn't have Guardian Flight down there as a private business, the airport numbers would be drastically different.
Great.
Like exponentially lower.
Drastically different. So
Fractional.
that is a big impact on our local economy. And I think as we march forward, I think one of the benefits of this is how long we've had them down there now. They've been there, what, 25, 30 years, close to that, in some form or another, Eagle Air and then Guardian Flight. But hopefully they'll expand a little bit further. We've got a new APL airport layout plan coming out that allows for additional bigger hangars by private parties. And so they might choose to build another big hangar down there. Who knows? If you don't have any questions, then I'm done.
So I don't have questions, but I just would like to say that I really think we need to prioritize I don't know what that building's called, but the main building that has never been updated in 50
It's
years.
actually having it re-roofed through the hail damage
Okay.
and a couple other things. So
I just, I'd really like to work with Pratt to put some displays in there similar to what we do at the visitor center, so that it's a useful space instead of just a pass through like it is now. And we really need to think about and prioritize even our rental vehicles that are down there, because those are 90 years old too.
Is the FBO still operating? The Siemens?
CDs are still operating. They work with Jeremy and they narrowed their scope of what they do down there a little bit. So they're not as heavily involved as Guardian Flight was in the FBO process. They're focused mostly on fuel and providing other services for the flying public, but they're not as focused on maintaining and supporting some of the other facilities at the airport. So, and I reviewed that contract just recently to see how that was.
So a couple other things to note about this and just in general about the airport is, one, these numbers are looking, so like the 400,000, just for clarification of the public, that's not the dollar amount that we planning city are seeing come in necessarily. That's a broader state and local tax revenue that's being generated through that. The second point is something that we'll be bringing to the council here, hopefully in the near future, is how a policy. We don't have a formal policy on commercial agreements or commercial uses. There, we've got a contract with Guardian, but we don't have a policy. And we've had requests to do flight school data that we found out one person is doing the flight school that shouldn't be currently without an agreement. And so we want to put together a policy that then would figure out how the council wants to see that function and continue to contribute positively to the economic benefits of the airport. So as well as third-party hangars being built down there, those types of things. So I think this is a great stepping stone into moving into formalizing policies down there with commercial uses.
If you look in that report, it kind of breaks down what he was talking about, the different taxes and stuff like that, how they're done. So if this is an open invitation to the mayor and council. If you have any questions as you look through that report, I'd be happy to interact with you, try to answer them better.
Well, and I just want to say one thing real quick. When I worked for Air Medical Resource Group, Eagle Air Med, as it was at the time, you know, we were having a hard time finding staff, finding mechanics, really, and that's what and we got together one day and Joe said, "That's it. We're moving the FBO. We're moving our headquarters to Flagstaff. We're done. We're out of here." And he took a few days and he thought on it, and we were able to find some other avenues for staffing. But he really sat back down and he said, it's because of relationships with you that he had built with you specifically, with the agreements that we had for that building and putting that building in place, and just the good value of the city and the way the city had treated the business over the years, that he decided to stay, which is why it's still here today. So I think it's important to note, because we see now the economic impact, and this doesn't surprise me at all. I think this is right on, but we see the economic impact of having them there and the airport here. So I just want to say thank you, because that gave me that thought in my head that did happen, 100% happened, and it was because of relationships that you had built and kept the airport in, you know, kept the agreements that you had made with them. So
That's been
thank
very
you.
intensive.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
This is
you.
excellent
Okay, thanks, Brett.
information.
Okay, discussion item, no decisions to be made. So this is a discussion in concept about possible raw water sales. So I might preempt it just a little bit by saying that if we remind us that we were looking at reworking the agreement with how we do raw water sales for the meal. So that it was more in line with the proper rate structure that it should be. And so that one baseline thing, I think we could have whatever conversation we want to have with Sondrager Construction about what that might develop. But I would recommend against signing any agreement until those policies and rate structures are in place. And you know, that might take a little while to get that, or it might be relatively simple depending on how that gets approached. But so anyway,
I would echo that. That would be my recommendation to staff is let's work on getting a raw water policy in place. And this is, if you remember when we were talking about the mill contract, I didn't even see this specific example coming, but this is the exact example that I
it's
was
the
talking
reason
about.
that we were working
Yeah.
on it.
And that's why I mentioned, hey, what we've been doing with the mill has been historical, but we really need a policy in place. And the mill was supportive of that in my conversations, because it would help them know exactly what's expected. But, you know, with the way water is right now, we have tiered rates on culinary, we have tiered rates on secondary. We need some sort of policy in place with the water consumption of raw water, because it's at much higher volumes than our culinary and secondary are. So
Where's this at? Sorry.
We had that question before a meeting
You know where-
started.
So it's not inside city limits.
no, it's outside, similar to the mill. It's a very similar dynamic.
It's a little south of
4 miles south of Churchill.
the horse park and stuff like that, but just north of the hill.
What was that?
It's a 1/4 mile south of Churchill on the
Was-
west
now
side
that
of the highway.
I was thinking, what was that green inside city limits right there is what I was looking at, but the only thing I would say is I don't want government to also slow down growth and economic development in the city. If that's what if they're gonna bring the jobs or create tax dollars, things like that, let's make sure we're not slowing them down. Let's get the policy written if that's what we need to do, because we talked about that, what, 8 months ago?
No, this was just recently.
October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it October?
Yeah.
It was longer than that.
So we moved partway
We just read
we moved partway towards that with the mill on the agreements and the way that those were structured, so that we agree in principle, but there's no water allocated towards that agreement until we see what we actually have. That was one of the major
Right.
changes.
And
But the
that-
other thing
yeah.
is we've got to set rate structures for this that are going to be significantly higher than what it's been.
Particularly because this year we've been in an orange or yellow, I guess it's yellow.
Well, yeah.
Yellow year, and our raw water, we don't have a similar rate structure in place for that. And so there's no, it's financial penalty, and it's not really meant as a penalty, but just financial incentive, I guess, to conserve. Yeah.
No, and I support, I mean, our residents come first and I support that 100%, but if there's a way to make it, I don't want to slow them down if it's going to happen anyway. Let's get our part done and see if the water's available and if we can sell it for.
So to that end, what do we need to do to move forward on
So
our
kind
rate
of-
structure for raw water?
Kind of my game plan is once this new year hits, we kind of get things settled with the council appointments and things like that, that we'll start diving into researching and writing a policy to recommend.
Okay.
But I'm assuming that it'll probably, that it should take some public hearing and noticing and getting public feedback, but most likely. So there will be a bit of a process. I was going to say that we'll move as fast as we can within the constraints that we have to move. But
We were tracking to try to have something going by April when we needed to.
that's what we
finalize
had
the
discussed with the
agreements.
mill. So
So that was the
Okay.
timeline. And this kind of just puts a little extra incentive there, like, okay,
it's
now
got done.
lo and behold, here's the very reason that we needed to do that, and
Right.
out of nowhere.
Would you put that on the project status
Yeah.
report then?
Yeah.
Because
That'd be
it does
perfect.
need to be on all of our radar, and that helps us remember that we're making progress on it.
Sunbreakers are based out of Monticello.
Yeah.
Right.
What will it do? I mean, they do quite a bit down here. I know that I see them doing lots of cement and stuff. What is it? I mean, is there any,
Good question.
because if they're based on, not that I don't want to do it, I'm not saying that, I'm just wondering what kind of benefit
Well, I'm
it
assuming
is.
it'll be jobs. I'm
Yeah,
assuming they'll come
which
and
is-
shop
which is-
locally
yeah,
in
right.
Diamond City. They'll eat, they'll buy things,
Paul
you know.
Sondrager already shops locally. He buys all of his fuel.
And they're super supportive of lots of things in town. I'm for sure not saying that they are not. I'm just
I'm
wondering,
assuming it's gonna be jobs.
I would imagine
Like
it
that.
grows what they're
Right.
doing is, you know.
So he's just looking at where his business is and some changes that have come about in that market in the last few months. And he's just making a business decision about where's the most effective place to do what he needs to get done.
Which is great.
So you had a comment, Brett?
The Navajo people tribe has $275 million that they're gonna spend on 162 or 160 or whatever. I think it's 162 that comes from Anna over to Montezuma Creek. They're gonna be rebuilding a lot of that road the next year or two. And I think Paul is trying to position himself to be in a position to help provide cement and other products for that construction, because that's gonna be a big project for a couple of years in the south part of the county over there.
He's currently hauling his materials from Moab.
Wow. Sorry, did Sondrager give us any type of timeline that they're looking at?
You have no water to sell till the 1st of April.
Yeah, we've got till then to hammer out the agreement before we can. I mean, we need the agreement in place before the determination of water availability arrives on us.
I guess what I'm saying is, they're serious about doing this next year? Or are they thinking it's gonna be 2 years down
He's
the
serious
road? Or
about
are
doing it now.
they now?
He just bought this property to set up his plan. He tried to buy property from me that I purchased in the spring. I'm like, Paul, I don't want to sell any ground. Nor do I want to sell him water, which he was wanting me to do also.
So, kind of on that point, and actually what the mayor was saying about business, and they're trying to, every business is trying to save costs and go the most cost-effective way, whether it's getting water or any kind of supplies. I would say on the same note, us as a city, we've got to do the same thing. And the reality is, the reason why the mill buys water from us is because it's cheaper for them to buy water from us than to pump their own well. The mill has a well. Same thing with Sandra. They have the ability to dig a well. So we from a business perspective, we as staff and as a city council need to keep that in mind, that it's working out for them. It's a business savvy move for them, but we need to ask the question, in the way our policy is structured, is it a business savvy move for us? Because we have a responsibility to our taxpayers to be smart with our dollars and smart with our water. And while I 100% agree, let's make things as easy as possible for business, I don't want to do it at the expense of our taxpayers and our water resource. I want to find that balance. And so that's why looking at this policy, I think, is essential. So.
That's an excellent summary
Can
of
I
the
make
priorities.
a comment is, and just a question maybe, or something we should look into, is that maybe we can approach who did our water rate study and come up with the tier stuff and have them just look back through our raw water and it may make it a little quicker and save a lot of research. and
We might be
everything.
able to do that beforehand.
I think we can look at what we have in maybe the water budget or something and see what it would cost for them to conduct something.
I think it would-
And it probably wouldn't need to be as big because we're not,
No,
I mean,
it wouldn't. It'd probably be just re-looking at
right,
the
just,
stuff.
yeah.
And it's a lot less water.
They could
you know what I
do,
mean,
yeah,
on
they
those
could have a
and stuff.
very professional recommendation really quick. And we can say, okay, does that make sense for us? That's what you gotta, and it has to be a good business decision for the city. And when you're talking water, it has to make sense as far as what the resource is and whether you have an agreement to do it, you need an agreement to be able to do it, but you also have to have the water. And that's kind of even more important. If you don't have the water, then all the deals are off. So.
I just realized I'm still screen sharing here. Sorry,
Oh.
public.
Okay. So moving on. Voting district maps letter. So I wrote a letter thanking the county for producing a couple of maps that as well as they could met the request that we were making. So it was nice to see that they did that. What level of consideration those maps will receive is a different question, but they did what they asked us to do, and I thought we should give them some feedback and appreciation for that and make our recommendation of what we thought was the best one, which everybody I talked to kind of agreed with my sentiment about it, that D seemed to keep us more intact, but C would work. And so that's the letter I wrote. If you want to endorse my letter, make it formally have a little more weight, then.
So the gentleman who was working on the maps did these as well.
Well, that's my
This didn't
understanding.
come from,
No, this is on the
No.
county's website.
So,
And that's where we learned about.
did
this.
anybody listen in or go to the public comment meeting, the public hearing? I tried to listen
Yeah,
to it.
unfortunately, these maps were not discussed or considered at that.
A
So
little, so they,
from what I understand.
right, I watched enough that James Brankham had a map, and it essentially was this D map, and he really stressed what the attorneys were talking about as far as what they're bound to do as far as the redistricting goes, and also hit a lot of the stuff that we have mentioned to them. So very supportive of our stance on what was happening. I don't know if D is his exact map or if it was just taken and changed a little bit. There was discussion that this map had only, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like 52% Native American population, which was not enough in the opinion of the guy that's drawing the maps. He didn't like that it wasn't higher. But other than that, I feel like they made some
in District 1.
in District 1, yes. Because the other ones were fine,
Yeah.
but District 1 was only like 52%, and they wanted it to be
70 something.
right.
In all
Yeah.
3 districts?
Yep.
Well, 2 of the 3, because in District
3.
Two. Or was it, I
Or
don't know.
2 would be significantly.
One of them was significant, or yeah,
3
significant.
would be,
Well, that brings an interesting thought
oh
though.
wait, not even option C.
Because the Native American component of the Blanding area is high enough that if you keep it intact, it impacts one of the other
Right.
districts enough that they don't like the result. So the diversity of that illustrates the diversity of the population of the Blanding area, which actually strengthens our position on wanting it to be left intact. But they're gonna have their rules that they're gonna go by, but I really do appreciate that they made an effort to produce something that could be considered.
Right.
And in all honesty, probably neither C or D is gonna meet muster on some of their other
No, I'm not.
qualifications. But we should push for
I've
it.
seen some things recently that
Well,
have been surprising.
I think by passing this resolution, even if right now they're maybe not under consideration, we'll pass this resolution. Tonight's actually the last day for public comment. So we've already sent copies of this letter to them. But once this resolution passes, have the mayor sign it and we can send a copy of this as well, showing the additional support.
When is their meeting?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's not this week though, right? I mean, it has to be done by the end of the month, but
Yeah, I just remember
It's
the
next
public
Tuesday.
comment is today.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, so I think this is still a powerful statement, something obviously that the local news is gonna touch on, and so hopefully it'll.
Well,
Can I have a question?
yeah, I mean, you know how it works. You're not on the
Look at
board.
options.
You might be.
Does option C really include Blanding and Monticello? You would think they would be jumping all over that one,
That's the way it is now. I mean, option C is almost what we have now.
including all of Monticello and
Although
Blanding.
option C did include more North Blanding that used to be in a different district. So it does give Blanding more of an, of the ability to have commissioner than the
Yeah,
current
C's an
situation
improvement
does.
on current.
Option C
That's-
definitely doesn't divide it into thirds.
It's not gonna change. I mean,
secondary option.
Mhm.
So,
Make a motion. then
But yeah, but I agree. I see what you're saying, Eric. It's hard for them
You're
to
still
argue
gonna,
that District 1 is.
they still get
unfair.
district or a commissioner from the north and 2
Yeah.
from their districts. But
Yeah, it doesn't change anything.
Mhm.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept resolution 2021-1, the mayor's redistricting letter.
I'll second it.
It's Turk and Bowers, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
So do we need to have someone at the, tomorrow's the last day for public comment?
Today
Tomorrow.
is.
Today is, this will be an addendum to what we've already sent.
and they will have a public comment. I mean,
It doesn't
similar
mean
at their
on the
meetings, yeah,
21st.
but specifically to this, they've opened a period where they're
what
taking stuff.
I'll do is as soon as we're done with this meeting, I'll have the mayor sign this resolution and I'll test it and I'll scan and email it before I leave tonight.
Okay, I'll hang around for that. All right, thank you. PDW grant for water master plan.
Mayor and council, this is what I described earlier during my reports. If you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, it's a positive thing moving forward.
Accept the motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-2, the DDW grant for water master plan.
I'll second it.
That's Perkins and Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sign that one tonight too while we're at it, or come in tomorrow.
We'll have you sign it all.
Okay. And continue on the water master plan assignment order.
So because we already have a contract in place with Jones and DeMille, we don't need to pass any kind of resolution for an agreement. We just need your approval because this is over my $25,000 spending limit within the budget. So I just need your approval to move forward with this, and it is budgeted, obviously. To do so.
It's less than we budgeted. We like that.
We do like that. It's what is that? 12,000 less than.
Well, it's the grant too, right?
And the grant's paying for it,
Yes, so we're
so
not double
we're saving
paying for
50 grand.
Awesome.
Yes.
You make a motion to approve basically the assignment order, because the difference here is it doesn't need to be passed by resolution because it's not a formal agreement. Does that make sense? So you're still approving the business item.
So the motion would be to accept the assignment order in the amount of 38,900 for Jones and DeMille to perform the
Engineering
work.
services.
So if somebody says so moved, we'll run with it.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Monson and Bowers, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're moving along. Meeting schedule.
So I looked into this, and I know historically in Blanding City, we haven't passed it by resolution, but I reached out to other city recorders, because in other cities that I've been in, this has always
Yeah,
been
we
passed
just
by
did advice
resolution.
and consent before, so
And technically, it's supposed to be passed by resolution, so.
you can do that.
So both, you could potentially even make, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, I think you can make a motion to approve both items 4 and 5 in one motion.
Because that'll be the meeting schedule and the holiday schedule.
Robert, you want to do the honors?
Now on here, it's specifically omitting the second December meeting, but do we have a second December meeting scheduled for this year? It's not even on the schedule? Okay,
No.
because I was gonna say we should stick that in as
One
a,
caveat that I should actually add to the holiday schedule is federal government added the Juneteenth day, and which is the celebration of finally ending slavery. So just so you're aware, that's an additional holiday that is now added for City Hall and staff. So
So wait, we used to have 12 and now we have 13?
that is correct. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
No, thanks for letting us know. Do we have to do that? Do we need to add in another holiday?
You don't have to. You can add and you can make your.
Can we add in more?
I was gonna say, you can do whatever you want. I'm sure staff would love it, but.
So really,
no, I read up on that. I
Is
thought,
it-
what the heck is this? And I
So we
asked
can
my
reach-
daughter
we can
had done a
replace-
lot of research on it. She says it's a really cool thing.
It really is cool.
And she told me what it was and I've since forgotten.
That's when Texas freed the
I mean,
slaves.
very technically.
Yeah, it was the last,
Yeah.
so
It
should
was
it
like
be a
for finally. there.
holiday?
It is one.
Sure.
it is one.
It is one.
Should we
Well,
give our
it is a
employees day
federal,
off? Is that
it is a
important? You probably know
federal
better
one.
than anybody.
Yeah, it's a federally approved holiday now.
Mr. Texas over there saying go for it.
Because we have human rights day too.
too.
We have human rights day too. I don't know. I think
Let's see,
we
why are you doing
have the
Juneteenth on
opportunity to look at
June
that.
20th?
That's the day it's observed.
I've had so many questions about the 4th of July already. People are,
We cannot wait. We were so pumped this last 4th of July after not having 4th of July during COVID, right?
Not it.
the
new person that's coming in, like, gets to do it, right? Like, that'll be.
Well, can I just go ahead and make a motion then that we,
Please do.
so we accept resolution 1214-2021-3 council's 2022 meeting schedule and resolution.
Can you separate them? Because I'm gonna vote no to the holiday.
Let's do the first one then.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
Anyone else?
I'll second
so that's
that.
Turk and Monson, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make the resolution to accept 2021-4, the holiday, approved holiday schedule.
I will second that as well.
okay, so that's Turk and Monson as well. And your concern is they're just adding too many federal holidays.
Yeah, I would like a chance to look at all these and make sure we need to be, if you're replacing a holiday, it's different, but that's, it's a whole nother day off. And I think it's something we need to consider rather than just vote on immediately. So I would recommend that we table this, but does it have to be done for the end of the year?
So you could make a
does, yeah,
motion, you could make a motion to table it, which would. be
But first you
considered
have to
before
vote
this
on the
one.
motion that's been
No.
made before you can vote on
She's
the
making
motion.
a substitute
Table on
motion.
the two motions on the
Her
table.
substitute motion would be considered, if it gets a second, would be considered ahead of the primary motion. So is there a second to a motion to table?
Well, I'm so sorry, but
Are you-
clarify, we can't table. because this has to be done before the end of the year. I don't want to make a motion that we can't
Oh,
do
yeah.
anyway.
Good point,
Because
good
we
point.
do have a holiday the
On the
first,
31st.
So we do.
well, on the 31st.
So I'm not gonna make a second motion. I'm just gonna
Because
vote against it.
yeah.
Oh, it's on the 2022 schedule, but it's for
Yes,
the,
it's for the
because it's New
31st.
Year's
There
Day
isn't-
for the first. Okay,
Because of how it falls.
okay. So you're not making the motion to table then, you're just expressing the concern, which is, you can vote against legit concern. I get that. All right. Any other questions on the motion we have, which is to adopt? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Clarify financial statements. Okay. Certify, clarify. Well, it's not,
Clarify.
We could probably use some clarity as well.
no, they're very clear if you can
Sorry.
grasp it.
I have to step out for 1 second, but we do have a need for closed session and for some reason you're in this.
Okay. Correct.
Thank you.
To certify,
Rude.
this is where Kim wants to take a couple hours and go in great exhaustive detail.
Actually, I'm really hoping that my staff report has a lot of good information in it, and I'm just gonna ask you if you have any questions. And then I wanted to just point out a couple of things that I didn't include in this. The first thing was that our net position did increase from last year by about 11%. Enterprise funds increased the total net position by about $468,000, 845. And the general fund's contribution to that increase was 130,350. So we can see that the enterprise funds really have an impact on our community. If you look at that graph, you'll see that, that's not the graph, turn over the page to that next graph on the fund balances. There was a spike in 2018. I put this in so that you can kind of see how things were rolling, and that spike was due to, if you remember rightly, if you were here, we did not move enough money out of the general fund and into capital projects before the end of the year. So that was my last finding, and it's haunting me again.
It'll fall off here in a little bit.
You can see that we did have an increase in that fund balance this year from 422 last year up to 688. When I went back and I looked through, because I figured you'd want to know what caused that increase in fund balance. There were several things on there. One was there was an increase in sales tax that we didn't anticipate. And for that year, when we budgeted, we reduced the amount of spending. So that left more in there at the end of the year. We could save more in the general fund and not move it to capital projects. So we left more in this year. So this number is just, I'm excited, or I'm anticipating to see what this year is now that we can leave 35% in there instead of 25%. So there was a couple of factors in there that led to that. Debt looks good. We decreased it by $508,000 this year. Our 2011 CID street bonds final payment is on January 1st. That's in a $100,000 payment every year. However, the San Juan Transportation District was giving us those funds, and so we'll be at the end of that debt here in just a couple weeks.
The only question I had was on this, and you made the notes here about the adopting a fee schedule, but I want to clear what we have fee schedules for a lot of stuff. So what specifically are they looking at there?
So what they would like us to do, and I guess we missed the auditor announcement that we needed to be doing that, is every year they want us to just approve the fees, mainly just so that the council can see what the fees are as a reminder.
So it's just a reassessment,
It's just
because
a
we have these fee
reassessment.
schedules for a lot of things, all of which have been approved.
Yes,
But they just want you to
they want us to put it on
look
a
at the
list.
whole
It has to be
package
published,
deal.
right?
Well, and it's also published for public rationale, but it has to be justified for auditing purposes.
Yeah.
So we can't just
So why
arbitrarily
is it-
say,
Why is the fee $25?
exactly.
Okay.
We have to
And
show
when
this.
when did we do that? So like, will we do it at the same time this next year or?
We'll do it in
May.
May,
Okay.
when we approve, get ready to approve the budget, we'll just
Okay.
make that part of that with the fraud risk thing. We'll just make a package of
Perfect.
approvals for that so that we don't, it never slips by again. Do you have any specific questions? I'm always happy to meet with you. There's a lot of information in that booklet, but the first 2 pages of that have the meat of the whole book. And I would love for you to come in and ask questions.
No questions.
Or just chat about horses.
I'm just amazed at how many you do such a good job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll make a motion that we certify the financial statements for fiscal year 21.
Perkins and Monson, all in favor?
Right.
Okay.
And
So,
I just have one final comment.
yes,
From Pratt was that on the back counter there is the gifts, and she would like you to remember they're there and pick them up if you don't remember what you ordered. I have it right
Oh,
here on my
yeah.
work phone.
I think I might remember, but I might check with you before I take somebody else's thing. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to enter closed session to begin in about 3 minutes.
Enter closed session.
I'll second this.
Turk and Monson, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, about 3 to 5 minutes and we'll be good to go.
For public.
Yes.
So. By that, we can